Hello, my name is Mr. Polk and welcome to my kitchen. And today it really is welcome to my kitchen because I have the entire kitchen out in front of me today to share with you. If you wouldn't know any better, you would think this is in the kitchen with Mr. Polk on QVC or something like that. But I like to show you all about smallwares today. So today it's kind of all about tools of the trade. And I'll start with the knives. And I know we already went over knives, but it's always good to sort of review. I have a whole little Mercer collection here, and just as a review, remember we learned about using the chef's knife and all of the safety along with it. And that's for your general cutting. It's your most utility knife in the kitchen. We also have a Sentoku knife that has the opposite geometry of the chef's knife, where it has the curve on the top, straight on the bottom, and it has little grooves. This is good for cutting vegetables and things that make like a suction, like potatoes and tomatoes. If you're cutting something that's soft like bread, if you tried to use your regular chef's knife, it would smoosh it. But here you can use the serrated knife and you can slice through. If you're working with meats and you need a fillet, we have our fillet knife, something that's flexible and allows you to get in there and do your filleting. And we just have a little utility knife, and then our also important knife of the kitchen, our paring knife. Okay? So now let's take a look at the rest of the items I have here. So here we have just a couple of your small hand tools before we get into the small wares. Very important in the kitchen is the fish turner. I get excited when I use this to actually make fish because usually I'm using it for turning at everything else but fish. Wooden spoons, I know you think these are for grandma's house, but wooden spoons are really nice with working with sauces. The way the sauce clings to the back and you can determine if it has proper nappe. Your rubber spatulas, I mean, these are great for everything, scraping, cooking, you name it. You got your tongs, okay, your clippers. And then finally we have our whisk, okay. This is for mixing things where you want to incorporate air, okay, or if you want to try to make an emulsion. If you're going to incorporate air, you're definitely going to utilize a whisk. A couple other little small tools is a ladle. You can use this for scooping, but you can also use this to skim, press it to the top of the pot, and collect fat, things like that. We'll have to use fresh lemon juice in here. So I have a lemon squeezer. Some of them you hold in your hand. Lemon juice for this one, this goes on the table. You put the lemon in, and it makes the juice. Some other small items. The microplane. If I can get the cover off here. Microplane is really handy. It's super sharp, so you got to be careful, but it's great for grating, like zesting of lemons and things like that. So this is the microplane. Then we have just a regular grater. Sometimes you got to grate different things. All right, you just put it on there, just watch your knuckles. As you learned in the safety unit about taking temperature, here's your standard kitchen thermometer, your probe thermometer. You'll be able to put into the thickest part of the meat or whatever you're trying to take the temperature of. They usually have a little mark on there, like a dimple. That means the thermometer should be inserted that far so that you know you're getting a good reading. If you're taking larger temperatures, like when we cook sugar and things like that, here's a candy thermometer. And this is set up for candy where it has hard ball, soft ball, and all of the phases. Okay. Then we can get into measuring. And our next unit is going to talk about measuring too, but this sort of kind of sets the tone here. And the first thing we have is measuring pitchers. So these are for liquid, large amounts of liquid. This guy is for 2 cups. And then we have one that will do 4 cups, so a quart. We've got a pint and a quart. If you want to measure dry, we have the dry measuring cups. And these are not for wet. These are for dry because you can put the flour in and then you could use something to level it off. Use the edge of a knife or a metal bowl scraper, a metal spatula. Whatever you have, you can use. What you do, these are designed, this is why they're not for liquid, is these are designed, this is a 1/4 cup, it's a 1/4 cup when it's flush to the top. Okay? For measuring small amounts of liquid, here's where you have your measuring spoon. So measuring pitchers, measuring cups, measuring spoons. And then these come anywhere from 1/8 of a teaspoon all the way up to the tablespoon. And again, these are the same thing. You want to make sure that they're always level. Again, back of a knife, a bowl knife, whatever you want to use, just a little spatula, just to keep everything level. Some containers even have a spot where you can just pull them out like that to scrape them. Then we get into the last piece of measuring, which is the scale. And I really prefer, as you're going to learn in the upcoming lessons, to scale our ingredients, because if you're measuring something in here like flour, you can pack the flour down and you can shake it and you can get more in here. But if you put it on the scale, 4 ounces is 4 ounces all day. It doesn't change. And that's why weight is so much nicer, because the volume doesn't matter. When you're using a scale, remember to always tare it. And that doesn't mean rip it. That means you turn the scale on, you put on whatever you're going to weigh, and then you always tare it. Tare it means 0. You press the tare button to 0 it out, and then you're weighing only the product. A lot of times students make the mistake is they turn it on, they get it to 0 here, then they put their bowl on and then weigh it, and they're going to be off because you got to account for the weight of the bowl. So you must always tare your scale. Okay? Now let's take a look at some of the larger items here. Is for mixing, you have mixing bowls. We have metal bowls of different sizes. These are great for mixing in. Glass bowls, different sized glass bowls. And then for doing your mise en place, we have, all the kitchens have these mise en place bowls. These little nesting guys. We got little ones for small ingredients, medium ones. These are like you see when I do my videos and I have everything all laid out. You're going to do that as well. You don't have to lay it out all fancy, but you want to have everything ready, all your stuff ready to go. Okay? And then we can get into cooking now. We have, first of all, your largest of your items is your stock pot. Okay, so if you're doing stock, soups, big things, you have a stock pot. This is a small one. You can get really large ones. Then we have pots and pans. Now, here's where this would be, this is a 3/4. This would be pretty much the start of a sauce pot. And then your smaller ones are known as sauce pans. So this 1.25 quart guy, this little 2/4, this would be a saucepan. When you get into something like this, it's more of a sauce pot, and then stock pot. So saucepan are the little guys. As they grow up and get a little bigger, they turn into a sauce pot, and then when they get really big, they're a stock pot. Okay? Now, what's unique about one of ours in the lab is that we have a steamer attachment. So you can put some water in here, get it simmering, and then you can put your steamer on there, okay? And you can put it in, and then you put your stuff in there, and it's going to steam it. The other thing you can do is we want to talk about these pots. The pots we use in the lab are really nice. They're a Cuisinart. And what they are is a good pot can be made out of all kinds of metals, okay? You could have cast iron, which is really great for searing, okay? You can have aluminum. They're kind of in the middle. Some of the copper, and then you have your stainless. And the stainless are really nice. All right, now these stainless aren't coated. You can get ones that do have, some of these guys, you can get them with a non-stick coating, but the ones we have are all plain. And what a good pot needs to have is the heavy bottom, okay? And you can see that this is stainless here, and then it has, inside this heavy bottom, different metals that help diffuse the heat. And then the other nice thing is these handles are cast aluminum, and therefore the heat goes into the pan, does all your cooking, and the handle usually stays cool. These are really nice pots and pans from Cuisinart. Then we get into the pans, and here's where everybody's like, oh, I know what that is. That's a frying pan. All right, well, we do have different names. A pan like this, a saute pan like this, sometimes you call them saute pan, all right? Or you call it a sauteuse, and the sauteuse has these sides like this, and they help, you can do the little flip and move things around. Again, they have really nice bottoms to them. And then the other one that we have is the deeper one, and this is great for, you can braise in here. This is called a sautoir. And the sautoir is nice because you could saute, all right? Then you could put in some stock and deglaze, and then put in what you're cooking and put a lid on, and just let it simmer finish. So again, what you would think in your mind maybe is a frying pan would be your saute pan or your sauteuse. And then we step it up to the one with the high sides. That's a sautoir. Okay? The other thing we have here when you're cooking with things, sometimes you want to strain what you have. If you have large items, okay, like pasta, okay, you can use the colander, all right. Has the holes in it, okay, I see you. Then you can also do a sieve or a sifter. This is great just to kind of strain, some people even call it a strainer, just to strain, large things out. Okay, pour it through. You can also use this for sifting flour. Give a little tappity tap. The other thing you have, okay, and those of you that grew up with Phineas and Ferb, this would be for fencing for Phineas and Ferb. Arr, okay, but here's the deal. This is one of my favorite tools. This is if you need to sieve something finer than this, okay. This is a chinois, and a chinois is a very fine mesh. Then it has this little cage over it, and it's great for when we have to go ahead and strain things like sauces and things like that. And then you can use a ladle, and when you move the ladle up and down, it actually just sort of pumps everything through. Okay. And then while I'm here, I'll show you these. These are more little hand tools, but this is our Mercer plating set. Again, I feel like I'm on QVC again. And here's where, we have these little plating brushes that are used for making designs on the plates. We have one of my favorite guys, the saucier spoon. It's shaped like a point, like a little gravy boat that you can pour your sauces on. You have your plating spoons. You have a little pair of tweezers, especially for me with my big old bear paws. These are helpful. And then we have our offset metal spatula or a little offset bowl knife that we can use to aid in plating. And then finally we'll end with pans. First thing in a restaurant, there's always hotel pans. They kind of are like the catch-all. And they come in different sizes. This is a full, okay? And then if you take a full and divide it in half, guess what? You have a half pan. If you take a full and divide it in thirds, you can get a third pan. Here's an example of a plastic third pan. And then if you take a whole and you divide it in sixes, you can get a 6-pan, and you can even go one step further and have a 9-pan. Okay? In the lab, you'll use the half hotels an awful lot, and we also have aluminum half hotel pans as well. These are great. We use this to put our ingredients in. They're just the universal thing. You cook in them, you store things in them, you do all kinds of things with them. And then the next one, especially in the baking world, is the sheet tray. And sheet tray comes in multiple sizes too. You have a full-size sheet tray, okay? This is the big boy. And then if you cut a sheet tray in half, you get a half sheet tray, and if you cut the half in half, you get a quarter. Okay, so we have a full sheet tray, a half sheet tray, and a quarter. And then the last thing that we use in the lab are these screens or cooling racks. These are great to set down and put hot pots on top. But these are also good to cook things where you want air circulation or you want the fat to drain off. So here you can see we have our half sheet tray, and then these are designed to fit right inside the half sheet tray. And if you bake things on it in the convection, the air will flow underneath or the fat will drip through. So these are very useful. Okay? So I know I talked a lot, and like I said, I was going to feel more like I'm selling you something like a QVC show. But what's important is I really want you to see, all of the tools of the trade, all of the things that we have right here in the kitchen. And it's really important to know, what you have to work with. If you want to measure liquids, you have the pitchers. If you want to measure dry, you have the cups. Small amounts, liquid or dry, you have the spoons. If you're making small things, you have your saucepans. If you need to cook a little bit more, you switch to a sauce pot. If you're making a lot of something like a soup, you go for the stock pot. When you're sautéing, if it's just a small sauté, you've got the sauteuse. If you're going to try to braise or do like a lot of things, or like let's say this is great where you start with something and then you keep adding a sauce and this and that, and then finish with maybe some pasta. That's where the sautoir comes in. Obviously, when we do our mise en place, your small bowls, your mixing. So it's important to always use the right tool for the job. and always think about what you have and follow the recipes. If I tell you to use the sautoir, that's what I want. When I look around in all the kitchens, I want to see every kitchen with a sautoir. I don't want to see you pick whatever pot you think is right. All right, I'm trying to guide you, and also the labs are designed that, you know, I'm in here, I know what works and what I'd like you to use. So in closing, make sure that, you know, you always survey your equipment and understand your equipment. And thanks for listening to me today, and I can't wait to cook with you real soon right here in Mr. Polk's kitchen.